All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Ciminelli, Senior Marketing Coach with Real Estate Nexus, coming back to you with another podcast today. I am joined with a very special guest. His name is Jordan Weber, and I'm going to give him a quick moment to introduce himself and let you all know exactly who he is, what he does, and who he is with, and then what we're going to be covering with you all today. So, Jordan, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the product specialist with zBuyer. It's kind of an interesting role that has no real, limitations or boundaries. So I do a little bit of everything, which is awesome. It brings me working with the guys over at Ren constantly, working with, anyone from a solo agent to large teams all across the nation. So what we're doing is generating home buyer seller leads. We've been doing it since 2003. Actually a realtor owned and operated company. And this started as, kind of a basement project to generate more seller leads and investment properties for our owners. We saw the potential of that, throughout the years, and it's morphed into what it is now. John, I don't think I've actually thrown this number out on anything I've done with Ren, but to this day, we've almost worked with 40,000 agents across the United States now.
Well, what that tells me, Jordan, is you guys must be doing something right if you got that kind of client base working right now. And to show everyone what we're going to be talking about today and why I have chosen Jordan to join us as our special guest and guest speaker, I should say, is our weekly topic is going to be 3 ways automation can and will revolutionize your real estate business. So jumping right into it, it's probably going to make a lot of sense why we've chosen Jordan to join us today. Is the first thing we want to make sure we are automating inside of our business is going to be our lead generation. And this is looked at a few different ways, but the way that automation plays a role here is going to be that making sure that when a new lead is generated for you, regardless of where it is coming from, that lead is immediately moved to a system that you can then act with speed on to get in front of and start that communication, to start that conversion cycle with that lead. And Jordan, I know this is something you guys have preached for years over there, the speed to lead model. Do you want to throw out some numbers or give us a little bit of your knowledge on why this is so important to be that first person who touches the lead once it is generated here?
Absolutely. So for our lead generation model in specific, we try and target home buyers and sellers as early as possible in the real estate journey that they're about to jump into. We do this for a few reasons. One, to take out as much outside competition as possible from other agents, from other lead gen companies. The other piece, though, is we're capturing them early on. So there might be a low level of interest or a low level of desire to immediately speak to an agent. And our leads are real-time leads. What that means is as soon as someone hits submit on one of our sites and completes the information, we get it to you or your CRM in under 60 seconds. So if you're quick, if you have the automation and systems in place to get to speed to lead and get to them first, that's going to go ahead and put you there what's still front and center in their mind. They just saw an advertisement about selling their home fast, getting a cash offer potentially, about buying a home, that there's great properties available in their area. And when you can call them or they're still thinking about it, and even further than that, while they're still looking at that page, there's huge value there.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of agents talk about, and because we work with not quite 40,000, but over the years, we've talked to hundreds upon hundreds and thousands upon thousands of agents who've worked this type of model. The jury is still out, but the go-to number that we've always gone back to is we have 2 minutes or less to talk to that lead once it is generated before our conversion rate on that lead drops between 60 to 80%. And Jordan, as a realtor-owned company, do you guys see that type of lead conversion changes based on how fast people are interacting with it?
Absolutely. After that first few minutes, oftentimes the homeowner, the home buyer has jumped off the site. Something else has grabbed their attention. And it's what social media has, trained us to do, find the next interesting thing. And so once they found that next interesting rabbit hole or post or video, their attention is lost. It's put somewhere else. And so whenever we're getting to them, like you said, that first 2 minutes, statistic is 80%, I believe, is the, lead conversion average, not just real estate focused, but lead conversion in general. 80% less chance of working with, talking with, qualifying, or taken to listing or closing. So getting to them as soon as possible while it's fresh on their mind is going to be key to building the conversation, rapport, and value early on.
So if we're going to do a quick conversion here, if you're generating 100 leads and not talking to them within the first 2 minutes they're generated, you could be spending between $10 to $15 to $20 a lead. And in reality, you're paying for 100 leads. And in most likelihood, if you're outside of those 2-minute windows, you're only talking to 15 to 20 of them total. And that cost per lead, that cost per transaction is going to skyrocket if you do not have, and going back to our topic of the week, automation in place to help support the efforts to be within that 2-minute window. So you touched on it already here, Jordan, and I think it's going to be great to transition right to it now, which is the lead follow-up. We know, based on our experience here at Real Estate Nexus, working with teams all over the country, 8 to 12 touches is what it takes. 8 to 12 unique touches to that lead, unique interactions that they have with you, your brand, a message, an email, a click, a open. They need to interact with you 8 to 12 times before they are even open to a conversation about conversion, or before you start to see the maximum conversion that we know is possible if worked the right way. Jordan, from you, I was going to say, from you over there, what's your number on these 8 to 12 touches?
I got a question for you first. So you're saying I can just send 8 emails to somebody and they're ready to sign a deal with me? Is that what you're saying?
You know, if there was someone who preferred email, technically you would get 8 touches in. But if we're looking at the best practices on how to do this, think about that. Would you prefer to get 8 phone calls? Would you prefer to get 8 text messages? Would you prefer to get 12 emails? The best part about follow-up is we have an entire arsenal of different tools at our disposal to diversify how we are touching these leads. And I know, Jordan, that's something you guys talk about heavily there as well, is you can't just touch someone the same way over and over and over again and expect to see results coming through the door.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how good that email, that text, that voicemail you're leaving, the video you're sending, if you do it over and over and over and over, it loses the flair, it loses the effect that it has. And that's something we hear quite a bit, from our customer service team of, hey, these leads aren't working. I've got an awesome email campaign where I'm sending them 8 emails in the first week and a half, but no one responds to them. They don't even open or click my emails. These leads just don't work. But that's not the case. You have to come at them from multiple approaches. We see as well that 8 to 12 touches is really kind of the sweet spot. But let me ask you, John, 8 to 12 touches, we keep talking about that number, but what does that time frame look like? Is that 8 to 12 touches in a week, a month, a year?
I'm going to quote the man himself, going to Gary Keller, and he was the originator of the 10 days of pain, right? So a bunch of touches over the course of those 10-day period. What we've found is, since that book was written back in the early 2000s, we have moved to a society where we don't have 10 days anymore. It is too long to wait to do that many touches in. What we've seen, and what Jordan alluded to earlier, is there's a lot of other distractions, not only online, but all around us. Most people in the United States right now will interact with 3,000 to 5,000 pieces of media that are trying to engage, sell, talk to, convey messaging to them, which means we are competing with 3,000 to 5,000 other people looking for their attention. What we have found over here is you have about a 3-day window to get those 8 to 12 touches in before that person is so far into the next 3,000 to 5,000 pieces of messaging they've seen that you see a similar conversion fall off like we would outside of that original 2-minute window. So 3 days is our absolute max over here for 8 to 12 touches, Jordan.
And I think that's why, jumping back to, the topic of, today, automation is why it's such a huge factor in having effective lead conversion and processes in place. Because who has got time to spend, over the course of 3 days, babying and, monitoring, constantly nurturing a lead and manually sending off 8 to 12 different, points of contact? Nobody's got that time.
And the very first piece of follow-up is looking at when our lead generation starts. That first message that goes out, that is a lead follow-up. These people are not picking up the phone and calling you. They could just be submitting their information. It is important that your first follow-up starts within that first 2-minute window. And in reality, and Jordan, I know you're probably as busy as I am throughout the day, I'm not immediately available every minute of every day within a 2-minute window of replying to responding. I wish I was, and I am at times. But if I'm looking at an 80% conversion fall off outside of those windows, I need something that is available nights, weekends, holidays, sick days, everything in between to do that for me, because I cannot, as myself, commit to being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of any outside situations.
Absolutely. And jumping back to our leads, they're real time. You don't know when you're going to receive them, much less do we know to the exact minute of when that lead is going to come in. So I can't call you up and say, hey, John, be ready in 9 minutes. You're going to have a lead hit your email. You're going to need to call it right away.
Exactly. And we need to make sure that your lead sources that you are prioritizing, such as zBuyer here, have the ability to push those leads to your designated system. And your designated system, you need to be able to start and follow up with that lead 8 to 12 touches in the first 3 days of them being generated without you personally having to sit down and do it all yourself. Because if we're being real with ourselves here, everyone listening and or if anybody's watching, we will not consistently do this, because if we were, we would all be millionaire real estate agents with no worries in the world, because we would have an absolutely extremely good conversion rate. So the key is getting your leads to the one location, having the automation start the follow-up that we know is consistently needing to be there. And then after that point, going to our next area of inside of that database, how do you prioritize out of the people that you're engaging with and or the people that you are marketing to and following up with? How do you prioritize where to spend your time? Because there will be times where we do ask, and for best results, you need to invest time into your business, not just on your business. We've created, and Jordan, this is not a groundbreaking concept, I could say, but it is a simple way to prioritize where your time should be broken in your database into and or your leads into an A list, a B list, and a C list. What that simply means, your A list, number one priority. These are your hottest leads. These are people who are actively engaging back with your marketing. Maybe they're giving you a high level interest of, you know what, maybe I would be interested in a phone call in the next 30 to 45 days. Anybody who you can say within your pipeline is going to be within a 30-day window needs to be put immediately into your A list, because if you're going to call, if you're going to reach out to, if you're going to do anything in your database, these people right here need to be your number one priority.
Absolutely.
B list, let's just call it your 60 to 90 to even 180. Hey, I want to sell in the spring market 2023. That's going to be a lot of leads generated between now and September, all the way to the end of the year. I'm going to wait for the spring market. Is it going to be everybody? Probably not. But is it going to be a fair share and amount of them that are going to want to do that? Yes. So sharing the screen here, A list, this is your priority, 30 to 45 days. B list, this is going to be your 3 to 6 month window. These are going to be the people that we want to stay in front of, but they're not quite as much of a priority as our A list. And then, of course, moving on to our C list. These people may be planning to move, maybe not. They're not giving you a direct answer. They need time, love, and just a little bit of attention to keep you what we call top of mind along the way. And Jordan, what I'd love your opinion on is how much work goes into, if we say 40 plus leads a month is our magic number of what people should be bringing in, how much time and effort would be required to follow up with the right way 40 plus leads a month?
Now, are we talking automations in place or no automations?
Well, let's say we have a 3-month period. So we're at 120 leads. Our automation is doing what we need to do. How much time and effort from your experience does it take for agents to actually reach out to, call, talk to, and be in front of 120 leads that you guys have generated for them?
So it's a hard question to answer, John, because it depends on the agent and how motivated and dedicated they are to lead generation. One of the biggest things we see, though, is agents are taking in that volume, say in the range of 40 to 50 leads a month, that they're dedicating at least 1 to 2 hours a day, whether that's from them, their ISA, or someone else in their team that's involved. I think that kind of speaks to this automation piece as well. It doesn't have to be yourself 100%. It can be other people that you've automated and put in your team to assist in that. about 1 to 2 hours a day, because we can put people into the list and we can say someone's a B list lead and that's where they need to be. But in the process of nurturing, continuing to stay in contact, that B list category might change to an A list or C list. And those lists don't do anything if we're not constantly updating them and keeping them dynamic rather than static.
Absolutely. And I wish I could say, Jordan, that every agent I've ever spoke to allocated the 1 to 2 hours a day that I know, and I know is what it would take to follow up efficiently with every single one of these leads. If we're being real with ourselves, there's going to be days where you don't have an hour or two allocated to it. And the biggest value that having your A, B, and C list available to you and set up correctly in your database, and as Jordan said, up to date inside of your database, is if you can log into your database and say, I've got 15 to 20 minutes right now, who am I going to call? You always have that priority set in advance. I'm calling my A list. I know this is where my time has to be. If I find more time later, then I can move on to my B list. If I have time after that, I'm going to move on to my C list. You will always have time, quote, air quotes going up there, if you know exactly who you should be calling, because this is what we internally here. And Jordan, I know you guys have heard this phrase before. It's a revenue generating activity. Calling your hot leads is the best way to make money in the shortest period of time. Any amount of money you're putting into your business or any amount of time you're putting into your business, this is going to be what's getting you the most ROI the fastest. Starting with A, ending at C, always making sure you're prioritizing what you need to along the way.
Now, with constantly prioritizing our A list, that being the main focus, one thing, because we've talked about this model oftentimes because we're constantly working with agents trying to give them best practices and help guide them through this. One of the thoughts is, well, what about my B list? What if I never have time to make it to my B list? There's two things that we can look at here. One is, what can you add to your team or to your lead conversion process to help get you there? But the second piece is, back to the topic, automation. When you are not physically making the calls to your B list and your C list, automations are doing that for you. So that way you're staying in contact, staying in front of these leads.
Absolutely. It's taking the necessity of you following up with them to a lesser degree when you can say with confidence, I am reaching out and touching these leads as consistently as I need to without me having to designate the time I may or may not have to do it myself. Automation is going to help make sure that your B list and C list are feeding and constantly fueling your A list so you don't have to ride what they call that real estate roller coaster up and down of my A list is great. Oh no, my A list is empty. Time to build it again. A list is great. A list is empty. With the A, B, and C list working together, it creates what we call, and not just what we call, it's what the world calls an ecosystem. A self-sustaining organism where if you can work it the right way, your C list feeds your B list, which feeds your A list, which then at the end of the day will help you produce more leads down the road, where it will eliminate the need to spend access hours that you may have had to in the past, because you always know exactly what you have in the pipeline at any given time, utilizing just a simple structure like this one here.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to touch on, because I'm thinking of this, I should have thought of this, sooner than now, but we're talking about automating lead conversion. But one thing that's important is having your lead generation automated. And we didn't even talk about this before we started. That's a huge part of the automation here. zBuyer, I'd love for you to use us as one of your sources. I'd absolutely recommend using multiple sources, but having your lead generation automated to where it's something that's constantly feeding you, filling those lists, topping them off every single month. And it doesn't require any effort from you except for the conversion process. If you're constantly having to look at your own campaigns and see what's happening, is this one performing well? Is it not? Oh no, I've gone 2 months because I haven't had time to take a look at this email campaign. I don't have any leads coming in. That's a problem. So having your lead generation automated is just as important as the conversion.
And I love that you brought that up, Jordan, because we did a training internally here to our entire staff where it was a 7-step system. And number 7 really stood out to me because it was when you have hyper-focused on step 1 through 6, getting a really firm process in place, it will leave you open to innovate, optimize, and have fun at work. And it is something that a lot of people overlook where, yes, once you get these other pieces in line, once your automation is doing the heavy lifting for you, it's not saying that you don't have to do those things. It frees you up to be able to optimize your processes, to innovate new and better processes. And it gives you time to have fun. You can focus on what you like to do the most, because we know that if you like to do it, you will spend more time doing it. You will get better at it. And when you can master different portions of your business, that's when you're going to start seeing life-changing results from all avenues. And automation, exactly what Jordan was describing, is a fantastic place to start, taking some of that heavy lifting of lead generation, putting that on to a company you can trust to produce the quality of lead you're looking for, freeing you up to then work and nurture and find your niche inside of your business that you can excel at, which is then going to make you a lot happier of a professional in the business world.
Absolutely.
So last topic of the day, step number 3. Let me go ahead and share the screen again over here. There we go. Remarketing. A lot of people understand lead generation at a high level. A lot of people understand lead follow-up at a pretty high level. A lot of people overlook the necessity and value of remarketing the leads that you have. Jordan, you touched on it earlier. You can't just send 10 text messages. You can't just send 12 emails. You need to diversify the touches that you're getting into your leads, and you have to cater to where they are within your A, B, and C list. Your C list may not want 10 phone calls from you. They may not want constant emails or text messages. So how do you get back in front of, how do you re-engage leads inside of your database without being that overbearing real estate professional who's just in the inbox so often that one day they just hit the unsubscribe button and they're gone forever? So Jordan, I know you were really excited to talk about this remarketing, so I almost want to just hand it off to you so you can speak to it here, because I know this is something that's so incredibly powerful, not only in the lead generation field, but everything we talked about, including the automation leading up to this.
Absolutely. So remarketing, there's one precursor that has to happen here is they're visiting your website, they're clicking on a Facebook ad, they're doing something to start this ability to be able to remarket to them. But it eliminates some of the need to have so many emails, so many text messages, so many video messages, so many phone calls. And those are amazing. They serve their purpose, but at a certain point and at a certain journey in the lead conversion cycle, they start to add up. And it's, the person that's constantly knocking at the door and you just want them to go away. It's the neighbor that won't quit pestering you. But this is the much more organic, subtle way to stay in front of them. I find myself personally, and I click on, the retargeted Facebook ad, and I think, dang it, this person has been, this company's been emailing me for weeks. I keep ignoring their emails, but here it was organic. It felt like it was on my terms. It didn't feel forced, like they're trying to sell me something. And so we fall for it. And not that we want to trick or deceive anybody, but we want to meet them on their own terms at their own time. Whenever they're on Facebook, for example, taking in whatever media, we know that that is the time where they're sitting down and they're choosing what they want to look at and what they want to ingest. So put yourselves in front of them there at their own time, at their leisure, when they're comfortable to do it. And that's where this magic happens. That's really, somewhat of a new concept for so many people. And a lot of people are really kind of getting into it, thinking this is way too high tech. It's a miracle if I remember my CRM login. So, John, let me ask you, how does Ren make this easy for people that think this is just too much technology for them?
So there's a couple of different ways that we've internally here adopted our remarketing. And if you're part of our database here, chances are you see us on Facebook all the time. You see us on Google all the time. Well, that's us doing exactly what we're talking about here. At some point, you must have engaged with us to a degree because you're seeing us. And if you're watching this right now, you're probably going to be seeing a lot more of us because of our remarketing. A very cool piece of technology that's been rolled out for not only Facebook, but also for Google that we have included with our packages over here and also included in a lot of our training is the ability to take a list of leads from your database with emails, cell phone numbers, etc., a group of leads, plug them into a designated system such as Google or Facebook or to another area, create what the systems call on a high level an audience, and say to that designated system, Facebook or Google, put my ad in front of these users on your system. And what it will do is say, okay, I have out of the list you provided, of 10,000 people. I've got 8,500 of them that have a Facebook profile hooked up to the email and or phone number you provided over to us. What we are telling Facebook to then do is take a designated ad of ours and put it in front of them. And then what we do is we watch on the back end for what we call a frequency. Frequency simply meaning how many times did this lead see this ad on average. And what we will see is the average frequency will go up over time. And by about the 2-week mark, if you are positioning your ad to the correct audience, your buyers get buyer ads, your sellers get seller ads, et cetera. If you're positioning yourself correctly, then you will see a frequency of about 3 to 5 every 2 weeks to 21 days, which means the majority of the leads, the average viewership of the leads that you've provided over to that system have seen you in their newsfeed 3 to 5 times over that 3-week window. And what does that do? That keeps you constantly top of mind with a group of leads without you having to physically reach out to them by any degree. All you'd have to do is one time upload a custom audience to the system. And then from there, simply cycle content. So a video, a picture, a message takes about 30 seconds to a minute to do once it's set up, to then say, okay, once my frequency hits 5, next video. Once my frequency hit 5, next video. And you will constantly be putting new and fresh content in front of the majority of your database so that when they decide, time to do a real estate transaction, who should I call? You're not just in the right place at the right time. You're literally in the right place all of the time. And it's not something that it's not going to be incredibly obvious to them because again, we're interacting with 3,000 to 5,000 pieces of media a day, ads, commercials, et cetera. You're going to be one of those consistently showing up for them. And the more you do it, that 3 to 5 number is what it takes statistically for them to specifically remember you, your brand, and or message to the point where if they go to recall and or the word real estate comes to their mind, you become synonymous with real estate the same way that cotton swabs are Q-tips, that Clorox is bleach, etc. You need to be synonymous with real estate. And the best way to do that is to be, let's call it constantly in front of the leads in your database in a way that they are going to be most receptive to. And as Jordan said, when you are that person that can be there on their terms, they won't see you if they don't need you, and you will always be there if they do. And being able to provide that level of service is not something that a lot of agents prioritize, only because, as Jordan stated, it can be daunting. If you need help with that, it is something that we feel is incredibly necessary and not an option for running your business. It needs to be part of your day-to-day. And we are here at Ren to absolutely help you start A to Z. No questions asked. We will help make sure that everything we talked about today is fully automated throughout your entire business and that you can effectively see, manage, optimize, and have fun with everything that you're rolling out, and that your database knows for a fact that if they need you, you are remarketing to them to the degree that you will always be one thumb slide away in their newsfeed, ready to go.
Now, question for you, John, because the other misconception that I hear a lot with remarketing is, well, that sounds super expensive. You're telling me I can put my face in front of 10,000 people? What's that cost? What's a realistic cost for this look like?
So in order to, and this is again, if you're looking for a 2-week sprint to get to 3 to 5 visibility, the golden rule is for every 3,000 people you are remarketing to, it will cost you $1 a day. So if you wanted to remarket to 10,000 people in your database, it will cost you $3 a day for 14 days. It will be the least expensive thing you spend money on statistically, probably in the entirety of that 2-week span. Your Starbucks order will cost more money every day than you will spend on remarketing to 3,000 people to 10,000 people in your database.
Let's call it 10,000 people. That's less than $100 a month. I mean, what do you spend less than $100 a month on realistically? It's hard to find something.
I lose more than $100 a month just out of spare change through my car, my pocket, so on and so forth. This is something that will make an immediate difference in your business and will be the least expensive piece of marketing that you do. And there's only one major contingent on this. If you're not doing what we talked about in phase 1 with lead generation, and you're not doing what we talked about in phase 2 with lead follow-up, this is not enough on its own to see the results that you're absolutely going to be looking for. This is a supporting marketing plan versus a aggressive lead gen, lead conversion tool. This is the nurture that gets you to 8 to 12 touches faster than anything else you can do, and will have consistently, by far, no questions asked, the lowest opt-out rate of any marketing you will ever do throughout your entire career, because it's something that is so incredibly passive yet effective that people will not even realize it's happening to them as it's happening to them.
I can't tell you the last time I opted out, or I believe it's like you have to hit the 3 dots and something like show me less or not interested. I can't tell you when the last time I even did it for a Facebook ad.
Facebook goes out of their way to make it inconvenient enough where no one would ever want to. Emails, text messages, phone calls, DNC, you name it, go out of their way to make sure it is incredibly visible and available to every single person to cover their own selves.
You mean that reply stop to stop receiving text is obvious?
It's a little bit on the nose, in my opinion. It is now included mandatory in the majority of systems sending those text messages. This is your way of making sure that when you make that phone call, when you send that text message, that is not the first time this person has heard from you, seen you, knows you. This is going to be what makes sure that you can maintain and optimize your database to a group of people who know you and like you, to the point of when you pick up that phone and make that call, the other person actually answers. Because my golden rule over here, Jordan, is everything we do for you at Ren should have the goal in mind that we're going to have you make less phone calls and talk to more people. And if we can do that, then you've successfully created a marketing plan. And with that said, the bottom line is what we were just covering here. As you can see, automation is going to be the biggest part of this. Trying to do everything we just described by hand, manually, I can tell you from doing it for the last 10 years, it's almost impossible, if not absolutely impossible to do without leveraging the technology. And you need to make sure you have a sales and marketing plan in place. This is not something where you can do a little bit here, a little bit there, and a little bit on the side and hope it all works together well. Just like making a recipe, you leave out one ingredient, your birthday cake is not going to taste nearly as good as if you forgot to add the sugar. This is going to be the key. We are giving you a recipe. We're going to give you a blueprint of every single thing you need to know to optimize your sales and marketing plan from start to finish. Again, very big part of it is going to be that lead generation portion, which is why I wanted to bring Jordan on here with his expertise. I can tell you, and we can tell you here at Ren from our experience, it is hard to find a lead source like zBuyer that has a higher conversion rate for the cost per lead that they have, as long as you are following the exact system that we were talking about here. You can see as much as and Jordan, I'm not going to take words out of your mouth, but I've heard 1 in 20 leads can be worth having a conversation with, compared to Zillow, which is closer to 1 in 75, Facebook, which is about 1 in 150. You're talking about a 5 times better conversion rate on leads coming over from a preferred lead source like this one.
Absolutely. The thing I want to add on to that, we're talking 1 in 20, 1 in 75, 1 in 150. You say 1 in 20, that's an amazing number, but that's 19 left over. When you have automations and when you have a sales and marketing system in place, those 19 don't just go to the trash. They don't fall to the wayside. Those 19 stay in the system. They continue to be retargeted to. They continue to have that outreach and that nurturing, to where 1 out of 20, in 6 months is 2 out of 20. And it's a year, it's 3 out of 20. In 2 years, you're at 5 out of 20. That other 19 doesn't just go to the trash. That continues to circulate through the database to create more business, to create future business.
That's what's going to occupy the majority of your B list. then to your C list. And then that's going to be what you create a community around, that when you're like, well, my database doesn't have 10,000 people in it yet, John. Well, this is a way to start working towards that, to the point of when you're remarketing to all of them, it will be your lead generation. Your database will be lead generation for you. And what that'll allow you to do is, I want to have a bigger month this month. You can tailor your new lead generation to say, I know that I can consistently convert at 1 and 25 leads. I need to generate 50 this month to make sure that I have 2 really solid opportunities and can grow and scale my business down the road as well. It puts you in the driver's seat of not only your pipeline, but your income. And it's something that in real estate, we all know is something we all could use a little bit more of, is knowing exactly when our next paycheck is coming and exactly how many of them we have in the pipeline for next month, the month after, and going into the spring market of 2023. So with that, to wrap everything up here, if you heard anything that sounded interesting, even a little bit today, we would love to have you come over and try out one of our systems. We are currently offering a 14-day free trial, no obligation. Go ahead, give it a click, get signed up for it. You will get access to a variety of different tools, all of which are what we talked about today. We will make sure that we set you up with or without us with a system that you can follow, that you can say with confidence, my automation is where it needs to be to maximize my results. And if you are looking for lead generation, Jordan, where can they go to learn more about what you guys offer as well?
So they can visit our website, zBuyer.com, but we actually have a super cool partnership between zBuyer and Real Estate Nexus. And I think you were scrolling there maybe, but it's something you can actually bundle and put together in one. We would absolutely, without a doubt, recommend anyone who's interested in taking on zBuyer or any lead generation, take a look at Ren as well. And over time, we came to this partnership where you can actually do both at the exact same time with one billing. It's one payment, it's one system, one process to manage. And we'll flow the leads directly into your Ren system. So that way Ren is there, they can help you get the systems and processes in place. And it's one less thing to set up.
Absolutely. And I know we actually made this comparison earlier. If your database is the engine of a car, zBuyer is going to be one of the tires, and we can be the other ones for you, so that we can make sure that we are moving your business in the right direction. You need to make sure all of your cylinders are firing, because if you've ever tried to drive a car with 3 wheels, you're not getting very far. So make sure that you're covering all of your bases. Make sure that your automation is where it needs to be. Don't leave money on the table because a lead said, well, I didn't hear from them for a couple of days, so I'm going to go back on Zillow and see if someone calls me. Believe it or not, I have never had a client who didn't at least get one of those messages back when we officially turned this all on. And it's the worst feeling in the world. But what I can promise you is if you follow this system to a T, you will never get that message again, because I can say with confidence, you will be in front of your entire database and in front of every new lead faster than your competition, because we're the ones that are going to put you right there to do it. So with that, everyone, if you are interested, make sure you check out our free trial. You can go to realestatenexus.io. That is our website. And, or if you're watching here, go down to the description. We will have a direct link to the free trial page, where you can try out a variety of different systems to help automate and scale your business. And with that, we will be back next week with another podcast for everyone here. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your experience and knowledge with us. Any final thoughts for the listeners today?
If you're listening, you haven't gotten started, I would just say, what are you waiting for? You're listening because there's something that intrigued you. You know, automation is something that's lacking in your database or could improve. Jump into it. It's a 14-day free trial. I can't tell you the handful of success stories we've heard from agents coming to us at zBuyer. Hey, I've got the leads, but I'm not having success. I'm not getting results. What can I do? And Ren has been an amazing partner for us to have, because buying the leads is a small portion of the work. That's the easy part. Converting them, that's where the magic comes into play, and Ren's got it mastered.
Perfect. And correction, you can go to our primary website, but if you want to streamline your process and getting started here, Ren, R-E-N, freetrial.com will take you exactly where you need to be able to get access to everything we have here for 14 days for free, no obligation after that. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what we can do to help you. And with that, we will talk to all of you next week, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.